Good evening, everyone. Usually say good day, but it's nighttime. It's cold. I am driving home, and it is like 21 degrees right now. But I said I'd be back for this week for part two of the whole Marvel um, discussion and episode that I did. Or yeah, it started last week, and then this week I said it's going to be pretty short. Um, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes tops. Well, just depends on how how deep into this I can get. But this part of the episode is, like I said last week, going to be over what I would do to fix the MCU's problem of having a centralized figure being the face of the company, being the one that holds the glue that holds everything together. Since we lost Tony Stark. Now, again, this is just me from a writer's perspective, not necessarily as a full-on fan perspective. Just as a writer and knowing what I've known from the MCU thus far, and I want to go ahead and preface this by saying that the time of this recording is in January, mid-January of 2024. So if you're listening to this later and trying to bring up points of movies that haven't come out at this time of recording, you'll know why. Also, do want to also add to that as well by saying that I have not seen all of the Marvel movies, mainly the new ones that have come out. I still haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Still haven't seen the Marvels, and I think it's only just those two. 'Cause I saw Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania. I have seen Wakanda Forever. I have seen Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. So I believe it's just those two, and I'm kind of good for now. Also, I haven't seen many of the TV shows. I started Loki. I think I'm on episode 2 or 3 of season 1. Haven't seen any Falcon and Winter Soldier. Haven't seen Echo yet. Haven't seen any of the Netflix ones that aren't canon anymore. But I have seen She-Hulk. I have seen um, what was the other one? Echo, no, no, Hawkeye. I think those are the only two. Oh, and Moon Knight. I have seen Moon Knight. I was completely forgot about Moon Knight. Anyway, but that's all that all the knowledge that I have, and I'm just gonna go based off of all of that. So only missing 2 movies and quite a few of the TV shows. But I already told my daughter that I'm not watching really any of the TV shows. Oh, I have seen WandaVision also, but I haven't. I'm not really watching any of the TV shows until they become more relevant in where they're taking place in the timeline. So now, since Loki has relevance because of Kang, I started Loki. Falcon and Winter Soldier hasn't come out yet. For the Captain America 4 movie hasn't been completed yet and announced with a trailer. So waiting for that once that gets announced and has a release date, I'll go ahead and start watching Falcon and Winter Soldier and so on and so forth. But how I would fix this is following the death, and this is taking into account of everything that we know, and especially with so throwing in a little bit of behind the scenes stuff in there, um, because that does affect things down further down the line if things continue, things persist. Fandom just is the fandom. All right, so after losing Tony Stark, we had the fallout phase of Endgame, which everyone's trying to catch up with their place in the world, and how they're where they're finding themselves at in a post Endgame world. Spider-Man, Far From Home, tackled that real well. Uh, so did it's like what other movie came out after that? See, we only saw the Spider-Man, Wakanda Forever, Didn't really touch on that. That was more centralized and its own themes. Um, so yeah, it was really just like Spider-Man, the Spider-Man movies, because Tony Stark was very, very heavily tied into the Spider-Man movies. And then a little bit of Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. Uh, Realizing that the bigger scope of bigger, badder foes out there in the universe and the galaxy also puts helps Strange to find his place in the post Endgame world. Uh, what believe I say? Oh yeah, I also saw Miss Marvel. So like also just taking in like those new Avengers perspectives. So Miss Marvel, She Hulk, not necessarily Moon Knight, Hawkeye was more of like a post Avengers uh, role and position that he found himself in. But after losing Tony, everyone going through their own individual rearrangements and fallouts, once Kang was brought into the picture as the next big bad, I probably wouldn't have done Ant-Man versus Quantum or Ant-Man and Wasp versus Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania with that version of Kang. Uh, Quantumania probably would have left. It's hard. Probably would have left Modoc, much to everyone's chagrin. Just because I feel the quantum world could better lead to Kang without Kang actually being a variant of Kang being the main villain. So just leave the main villain Modoc with almost like a role, almost like how the roles were with Loki and Thanos. How Loki was the villain in Avengers, but he was really just a puppet of Thanos to tease Thanos. I would have did that with Quantumania with Modoc and Kang, just to tease, because that variant of Kang is kind of closely related to the Kang that they're going to be facing in King Dynasty. So I definitely would have kept that Kang a little more teased in the background. And then, whew, Spider-Man is off now doing his thing, following the events of No Way Home. But I would have Spider-Man kind of take on the role of Tony Stark because he has Tony's technology. He has access to Tony's tech in one way or another with Edith. But he would be more of a reluctant leader. He doesn't want the title of leader. He doesn't feel he should be leader. So that way Spider-Man can grow into becoming the more mature Peter Parker that he's actually leading on to be, and the more mature Spider-Man that it's going to be needed in the MCU. Just because the way that they said that his three movies were basically the origin story done in three parts. Uh, but following that, there could be that same kind of juxtaposition with Captain Marvel that was there for Iron Man and Captain America. Captain Marvel seems very, very strong-willed, punch first, ask questions later type. Even after her movie, after um, the Marvels, again, not fully aware of the full events that are transpiring in the Marvels. Um, but she was being pushed to be the face, the leader of the MCU. And so I would actually like to, I would think that they could build up to a Civil War II scenario, whereas in the comics it was Civil War II was Iron Man against Captain Marvel. But it'd be more interesting to eventually build it up to Spider-Man versus Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel getting a little humbled um, just because she has power and she has the experience to use it and achieve what she needs to achieve. To go up against someone who's a lot younger, almost equally experienced in his abilities, but yet is the one that's being seen more of being the leader, especially since Captain Marvel's not on Earth a lot and trying to play protector over the entire universe slash galaxies. Uh, but it would be awesome to kind of have that happen with the King dynasty leading up, and then have that variant of Kang that was in Quantumania be the main villain of the King dynasty. He gets taken care of, but then the stronger variant of Kang comes out and just decimates a good amount of the MCU. I don't know if I would have a lot of deaths for those characters. It would probably, if we were to try to follow how Infinity War handled it, um, it would be like a lot of the not too established and not too defined characters being uh, blipped essentially in Infinity War. Because while Black Panther was a big hit and everyone loved him, he wasn't too full fleshed out. Still green, even though he had two movies under his belt. But he wasn't the main focus. He wasn't the one that was going to be having an arc that was going to finish up or pay off in the Infinity Saga. Now I would have Black Panther still be one of the end players, um, especially now that since Shuri is not a Black Panther, and Shuri is a torn it has a torn mentality because she wants to honor T'Challa and be wise and respectful and honor her brother. But at the same time, she is also the very action gets results. And so she has that part of Killmonger that she uh, sides with. And she doesn't like that side. She doesn't like having basically like her conscious being Killmonger and T'Challa because she wants to be more like T'Challa, but she's not T'Challa. But yet she is also leaning towards more of Killmonger, but she's a perfect middle between them because she can do the action. She does have that attitude of we need to strike when we need to strike. And that's obviously not a good sign for a leader. A good sign for a leader takes into accountability not just himself, actually not himself or herself at all, but what is best for the people that's underneath them. And Shuri showed in Wakanda Forever she is not that good at that decision making. Going to war with Namor and pretty much fighting a no-win battle. She was getting revenge for her mother. She was going out of pure spite. And while nothing was fully achieved, a lot was lost. She just essentially just kind of put things back in its place and didn't make things better or worse. Actually, she made things a little bit worse from where they were, but no, in no way that much better. I think Peter would have handled that situation a lot better because his rational thinking is a little more closer to Tony's. Plus, he's a lot younger and he doesn't want to screw up. So because of that, he takes into account a lot more variables than what Shuri would and what Captain Marvel would. But I would definitely have Black Panther be in like Secret Wars to face off with the actual big bad King variant. And of course, Spider Man. Actually, no. So after King Dynasty, we have some of the Avengers get, of course, just completely wrecked and beat up, but then also scattered across different multiverses. That would probably be the best way to handle that because King doesn't necessarily flip. But every or every universe has their own version of Kang. So I would probably send out Shang-Chi would probably be one of the ones cast out to the multiverse. Um, so it's kind of ruins my timeline a bit from where I was originally thinking. But I would, since it's like a year apart, it's like maybe one more movie in there. I would have Peter Parker be the face. I would have Captain Marvel take issue with Peter Parker actually being the leader of the Avengers because she doesn't feel he has the experience and the fortitude to lead. I would bring that to Civil War II, where Captain Marvel kind of gets humbled. I'm not gonna say put in her place, but she realizes that she does realize that she is not fit to be the leader that she was wanting to be because of how she approaches things. And that, yes, Peter is the one that is the most uh, qualified to be the leader because of how he can see and consider things and figure things out to where it's more beneficial for everyone that's underneath him. But along with that, you enter in King Dynasty, and at the end of King Dynasty, I would have half of them get scattered out to the different multiverses, different universes in the multiverse. It'd probably be Shang-Chi. I don't think they're really going to incorporate Moon Knight all that well. Um, Definitely not the Eternals, and definitely not Blade. Um, Doctor Strange, probably, just because he probably won't be involved in King Dynasty. He'll probably be fixing his own incursion from the multiverse, and then during those events, um, it's hard to say. Like, I want to keep Miss Marvel in there because you got to have some of the young Avengers in there. Maybe Kate, keep her as well. She-Hulk probably would be cast out if She-Hulk is in any of the Avengers movies. Keep Black Panther for the end. Keep Captain Marvel for the end. Miss Marvel needs to go into did be vanquished into one of the multiverses for Captain Marvel to completely get, because it seems like they get a good relationship in the Marvels, and so to have to have Peter be cast out into the multiverse puts Captain Marvel into the position of she needs to now step up to be the leader. Peter's gone. She can kind of start to make her own decisions from the situation that they're in, but then losing Captain Marvel or losing Miss Marvel, someone who is also young and impressionable and looked up to her, and yet she approached fighting Kang with the same mentality and the same gusto, only to be cast out and possibly gone forever. That would affect Miss Marvel and make her, that'd be the catalyst to make her want to change and be more like Peter. So she could think a little more rationally. She doesn't want to, she wouldn't want to lose anyone else, just like how Tony didn't want to lose anyone else after the blip. Um, but then after Secret Wars, when everyone who's been fighting their own wars in their own respective multiverses gets out, comes back, helps fight the army of Kang, and Kang, the Conqueror, have Loki show up too, because Loki controls time now, from what the spoilers I've read. It's a big roster to trying to keep up with. Because they don't even know what we're doing with the Guardians, because not all the Guardians are here anymore. I don't know if they would play a role or not in any of the event, the King Dynasty, much less if they were to do like a Civil War 2, which I think would be a lot better because it would help make them decide on who can be the leader for everyone. But then afterwards, Peter would just step down and let Captain Marvel be the leader, and Captain Marvel be staying on Earth to help make sure that she just doesn't delegate from afar. Uh, just because of the way the tricky situation is with Sony and Marvel and Spider-Man, and plus like how they're planning on having Spider-Man be in Venom and crossover at some point. So Peter would need his own space to kind of do that because that will be canon the case of everything going on in the MCU. Um, but yeah, that's how I would definitely fix Marvel's issue of having a face of the company that could kind of keep everything together, keep the fandom happy, and keep people wanting to go watch. Especially the Civil War Part 2. Because they can get their roster that's available, see who's more like with who, and then have people kind of be okay with being under a leader. You'll still have some of those who are kind of opposed and still kind of want to do their own thing in their own way because it gets results that they want. But then those would kind of, some of them would kind of be cast out into the multiverse. Some of them would stay, and then vice versa on the other side that sides with Peter. Some of them would get cast out into the multiverse, some would stay. You're still going to have that, like, a little bit of a difference, a little bit of a divide, because everyone has to at least come together and unify under one mentality, one mindset of how to carry things out because they are the superheroes, they are the guardians of that world. Um, but then, like, Secret Wars would kind of, it would have to have Captain Marvel and Peter working together to delegate and properly utilize everyone and their abilities. It's like co-leading, co-general, being like co-generals, just to show the payoff of Captain Marvel's change and the growth in Peter. I think that would. I'm a little bit. I'm very satisfied with that. I feel like I can't, as a writer, I can't think of any other way to add on to that. Maybe like little small things, but like nothing big that as a highlight that would add. I could add to that or take away from it and make it better. That's exactly how I would play it out. Kevin Feige's going to do his own thing, obviously, but that's how I would handle it. And especially since it still keeps the face of the company is still a Marvel IP, because you can have Spider-Man for a good amount of time, and that keeps things kind of good between Marvel and Sony. But obviously, Sony, unless until Marvel buys back Spider-Man from Sony, at some point they're gonna have to give Spider-Man back, and that still gives them the option to give him back and keep Captain Marvel as, even if not everyone likes the actress, at least the character would be a little more likable to a lot more people, a lot more easy to digest. Which how she is now is kind of not. She is like not too easy to digest, but you do see her place. You kind of understand why she is the way she is from the first movie. And yeah, it's something completely different from the comics sometimes. Sometimes it's not, but that's what the MCU is. The MCU is separate from the comics, doing its own thing. They will pull characteristics, traits, and events from the comics, but they're going to still make it their own for the MCU. So it's just for the MCU. But anyways, that concludes my thought on that. Be fun to know any one of your thoughts on what you think about my how I would handle it, and then if you have differing opinions, feel free to just let them be known. I will probably attach a question to this through Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify, because it just got linked up with Google Podcast and iHeartRadio Podcast. Um, so yeah, you could definitely just leave a comment. I might try to start a Discord for this channel so we can start discussions there before this episode comes out. Um, so I will eventually, like one of the later or I might come out afterward of this, and like just say, hey, this is the Discord name. Feel free to look up and join. Did start my Patreon, did get that up and going, did get the link down into Spotify. So yeah, you can click on that or just go onto Patreon, look up Austin Guy Podcast, and you'll see the logo. Again, I kept the tiers like $1. And if you really, really like what you hear, if you really want to support it a little more, there's a $5 option. Sorry about that, but yes, I didn't want to charge too much. I didn't want to ask for too much. $1's fine, especially since right now gas is like $2.30 where I'm at, and so like $1 really goes a long way, especially on my car. So thank you all. I was able to keep it right around 30 minutes, so I'm very shocked over that. So thank you for joining me on this drive, and it has been fun. It has definitely been fun to get this thought out finally. I still may eventually at some point do a YouTube video about this in its entirety and not broken up into parts. But for now, just to actually get the thoughts out and hear them in a somewhat cohesive way has been very freeing for me. So if you made it this far today in both episodes, to the very end of both episodes, it is greatly appreciated, the fact that you found it interesting enough to even listen to in full. So, be back next week. Again, still trying to build up like a whole catalog of these. So, I'm trying not to tease too much as to what I'm going to be talking about next week, just because I have a lot I'm going to record. But as far as when I tend to post them, it's going to vary. I do have a time coming up in April where for about 6 weeks I won't be making my commute. I'll actually be taking some time off from work. So that's why I'm trying to build up this catalog so that way I have enough that I can just kind of cover when I'm not driving around. I can focus on what I need to focus on. Worst case scenario, I'll just make an update just announcing a hiatus and just start it up with season 2 because I'm still on season 1 because apparently you can make seasons if you want on just Spotify for podcasters. But anyway, thank you very much for everything, for hearing me out, and for joining me on this lovely, lovely drive in this fracking cold weather. And I will see you all next week. And I hope you all doing well. I hope you all be doing well and be doing amazing things with this year as the month is pretty much almost over and we will be into our second month. Let's just all try to make this whole year just productive and fun, if nothing else. But until next week, take care of yourselves. Love y'all.